That morning he came at the same time as always. His old jeans, faded blue shirt, and worn sneakers. Nobody gave him a second look. Just another retiree spending his weekend tending to his garden, an ordinary man. Until a young commando recruit noticed the faded tattoo on the man's arm. That tattoo wasn't ordinary. It was a mark that only a very few had earned the right to wear. And that young man's question changed everything. Welcome to Human Stories. Before we continue with this story, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this should never be forgotten, hit that subscribe button and help keep these voices alive. Robert Mitchell was at the park every Saturday morning at exactly 7 o'clock. 57 years old, average height, graying hair. The young guys just called him Bob. He'd sit on the bench at the edge of the park, usually with a cup of coffee in hand, sometimes an old book. He was quiet, modest, never talked much with anyone. The park was a place where military academy cadets came to train, especially on weekends. The young men would run, exercise, sometimes compete with each other. Bob would watch them all quietly. He never criticized, never gave advice, just sat and observed. That morning, he was sitting on his usual bench. The young men were doing sprint training. One of them, Marcus, was particularly driven. He was preparing for Special Forces selection and constantly pushing himself to improve. But that morning, something was different. During his run, he stumbled, fell, and injured his knee badly. His friends rushed to help, but Marcus's knee was seriously wounded. They needed to call an ambulance. That's when Bob quietly approached them. "Let me take a look," he said in a calm voice. The young men were surprised. What could this old man do? But Bob's movements shocked them. He examined the tear over the knee, then tore the bottom of his shirt and applied an expertly crafted bandage. His technique was so professional, it was like he'd done this thousands of times before. "This is temporary," he said, "but it'll hold until you get to the ER. No bone fracture, just a deep cut." Marcus looked at him in amazement. "Sir, are you a doctor?" Bob smiled slightly. "I'm not a doctor." "Then how did you—" That's when Marcus noticed something as Bob rolled up his sleeve. A faded tattoo. At first he couldn't make out what it was, but looking closer, his breath caught. That tattoo bore a symbol that only members of one of America's most elite units could wear. "Green Beret," he whispered. Bob's smile froze. The other young men around them had gone silent too. Green Beret was one of the U.S. Army's most distinguished units. Only the best of the best, those who carried out the most difficult missions, could wear that beret. You were in that unit?" Marcus asked. Bob remained silent for a long time. Then he slowly stood up. "The past is the past," he said. "Now I'm just Bob." But Marcus wouldn't give up. "Please understand, sir, I want to become Special Forces. If you were really in that unit—" "If you really want to become Special Forces," Bob said in a calm voice, "first learn this. Real heroes don't talk, they act." Marcus's friends moved closer, curious. One of them found the courage to ask, Have you ever been on operations?" Bob's eyes drifted to the distance, as if he was going back years, to a time no one knew about. 1998, he said slowly. Northern Afghanistan, code name, Eagle Operation. The young men held their breath. They'd never heard of this operation, but the tone in Bob's voice told them this wasn't an ordinary mission. "There were 5 of us," he continued. "Our mission was to rescue 2 aid workers who had been kidnapped by terrorists. We'd gone 30 miles into enemy territory. Our communication devices were damaged. No help was coming. We only had what we knew and what we had to do." "What happened?" Marcus asked eagerly. Bob's voice dropped even lower. "The operation lasted 3 days. We found the aid workers, but got ambushed during extraction. 2 of my 4 teammates were wounded. Jackson was shot in the leg, couldn't walk. Rodriguez's shoulder was shattered. He paused, took a long breath. Command radioed, "Fall back." But we couldn't leave the wounded behind. That was our rule. No one gets left behind. The young men listened as if mesmerized. For 24 hours, I carried my wounded teammates on my back, sometimes one, sometimes the other. The aid workers were with us too. 7 people being carried by one man. Hunger, thirst, exhaustion. But we didn't give up. How did you manage it? Bob sat back down on his bench, placed his hands on his knees. Because in those moments, you're not thinking about yourself. Your teammate's life is in your hands. When you carry that responsibility, your own exhaustion becomes meaningless. It's not the body that carries you, it's the soul. Marcus's eyes had filled with tears. Did you save them all? Bob remained silent for a long time. This silence made the young men's hearts race. "We brought everyone home," he said finally. "But what I learned that day was this. Real strength isn't used to prove yourself. It's used to protect others." Just then, an ambulance siren could be heard from the other side of the park. Marcus's wound had stopped bleeding. The bandage was still in place. When the paramedics arrived, they saw the first aid Bob had administered. "Who did this bandage?" the paramedic asked in amazement. The young men pointed to Bob, but the man had already left, walking toward his home. "This is professional work," the paramedic said. "Someone with medical knowledge did this." From that day on, Marcus looked for Bob in the park every Saturday. He wanted to find him, to learn from him. But Bob didn't seem to be coming anymore. 2 weeks later, he learned from the neighbors. Bob had quietly moved away. Nobody knew where he'd gone. Only one neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, had said something. Bob always used to say, "I'll live here until there's no one left who knows me. Then I'll move somewhere else and live the same quiet way there." Marcus passed his Special Forces selection. On his first day, his commander taught him a rule. The person who'll be the best here won't be determined by who brags the most, but by who sacrifices the most. In that moment, Marcus remembered Bob's words. Real heroes don't talk, they act. 6 months later, when Marcus was wounded in action, the medic treating him in the field hospital told him something. That bandage that kept you stable until the ambulance arrived was done very professionally. I wonder who did it. Marcus smiled. A hero did it, but nobody knows his name. So I ask you, have you ever encountered someone like this? Someone in everyday life who, when you later learned who they were, left you shocked? Write their names in the comments, share their stories. Because here at Human Stories, we believe the most powerful stories don't shout, they wait. If this story touched you, like it, share it, subscribe. And remember, sometimes the greatest heroes are the quietest people. And next time you see an elderly man sitting in a park, know that maybe one of history's greatest heroes is sitting right next to you.